Greetings, ghosts and ghouls. Welcome to this year's Halloween special. This is going to be gold, so consider yourselves in luck as we discuss the full Leprechaun series. Enjoy!
Hey everyone, it's T and welcome back to my channel. Happy Halloween. I have Matt here. Say hello to the people.
Hello to the people.
Ugh. Anyway, welcome to this year's Halloween special.
Ooh.
But anyway, so for this Halloween special, we decided, well, actually Matt decided, and I agreed, that we were going to watch all 8 Leprechauns and then review. I guess let's jump right into it.
And also, just include for the viewers, or listeners, I should say, not all of these were bad. Half of them are surprisingly good.
Yeah, it was actually fun. I thought I was going to hate every moment of it, so we kind of procrastinated with watching them, but they were actually not that bad, most of them. So, yeah. So let's jump right in with number 1. Basically, for the first one, what had happened was Jennifer Aniston, because that's who's our leading lady in this, and her dad decide to move out to this really shitty house in the middle of nowhere. And the whole time she's like, "Well, I don't want to be here. There's nothing here. I'm rich. We should be somewhere luxurious, Dad. Ree." And then she meets the painter dude guy. I forget his name. I think it was Daryl. Was that it?
Was it? I don't think it was Daryl.
Maybe it was Darren. Something with a D.
I'm not sure it was. But I'm bad with names, so.
Oh my god. It's falling apart already. Does it even matter his name?
Not really.
Okay. Well, anyway, homeboy whose name I believe starts with a D.
Yeah. He's your typical country boy. And Jennifer Aniston's character, of course, immediately decides she does not want to leave and does not hate it there anymore. Of course.
So, Mr. Hunky Painter dude, whose name I swear begins with a D, has his little brother. I think his name was Alec.
It might have been, yeah.
And their mentally challenged friend, Ozzy, who also helps them paint. So they're painting the house or whatever, and then the little leprechaun ends up escaping his prison. In the beginning, it shows the leprechaun, his gold got stolen by some Irish dude, and the Irish dude traps him in a little box down there with a full 4-leaf clover. So anyway, they're painting the house or whatever, doing stuff. Ozzy accidentally releases the leprechaun, and shenanigans ensue. It starts terrorizing him. The leprechaun wants his gold. They ain't got the gold. And then eventually they kill him with slingshotting the clover into his mouth. And he falls down a well and is trapped. And that's pretty much how the movie goes.
Yeah, that's the general plot. We both enjoyed this one.
Yeah, this one wasn't terrible. The acting was okay. The humor was good. Overall, it was a pretty fun movie.
One of my favorite parts of this one is just at multiple points just showing the leprechaun in different forms of transportation. First, it's a little toy car, I believe, right?
No, it was a tricycle first.
It was the tricycle first, and then it was the toy car. And just, yeah, it's a really fun movie. And that's a common theme throughout them, that they really lean into the comedy aspect. And typically, the more they lean into the comedy, the better the film is. The more serious it tries to be, the worse off with this series.
With one exception, which we will get to.
Yes.
But overall, I thought it was, pretty good. The comedy was good. The kills were pretty creative. At one point, he kills a dude with a pogo stick. That was pretty good. Dude likes to bite a lot.
Yes. So I believe there's maybe only 1 or 2 films in all 8 of them in which he does not bite somebody at some point.
Yeah, and actually the design for the leprechaun is pretty good throughout. especially this one. His design is pretty good. Of course, Warwick Davis plays the Leprechaun in most of these, with the exception of the last two, and his performances are always pretty good. But yeah, the only real complaint I would have about this would be kind of Ozzy's character. Because at first, when he's introduced, he just kind of seems like a goofball, and then it's kind of revealed he's mentally challenged. But I kind of didn't get that vibe, until like as the movie goes on, it's like they try harder and harder to make him seem more mentally challenged. But I mean, that could be kind of a nitpick in my opinion. But
Yeah, I don't think it's a nitpick because he really does seem like a normal guy until it's revealed that he's mentally challenged and then his intelligence takes a nosedive. Ozzy is the most likable character in this one as well, is worth mentioning. I'm not a big fan of Jennifer Aniston in a lot of things, and this movie is no exception. And this is a problem a lot of them had. Poor characters. Characters you don't want to root for.
yeah, like Jennifer Aniston's character was pretty annoying, I would say. She's all like, oh, this is too good for me. This is, this place is just, it's terrible. There's no watercress sandwiches, no bottled water. Ugh, ugh. Oh, but there's a hot guy here, so maybe it'll be fine.
Yeah, more mentally challenged than Ozzy. And I'm now remembering, I see in the notes here, bear shoes, and I was like, what does that note mean? And I've just remembered, because it's the character stupidity on full display. Jennifer Aniston's, or actually maybe it was the guy.
Yeah, it was the hot
buff
painter dude.
Yeah, the buff guy who said it. But there's one point, the leprechaun loves to clean shoes, take care of shoes, right? So he breaks into the home while they're away, and at one point, he's looking for the gold, and then he just stops, shines all the shoes, and then leaves them all lined up on the table, and they come back to the house, and they're adamant that a bear must have broken in and done this. Like a bear was going to shine their shoes and line them up on the table.
I mean, to be fair, the rest of the house was a mess, but that didn't make sense. Like, a bear just decided to, like, shine the fucking shoes. Like, that was a pretty silly thing, but it leaned into the comedy, so that worked out.
Oh, and another one. The movies haven't aged that poorly either. I mean, some of them have, and I think we'll mention that as we go along.
Yeah.
But the first one, hasn't aged that poorly because there weren't too many special effects. It was mostly practical effect.
Yeah, and the practical effects were pretty good, especially for, 90s.
Yeah, it definitely stands up the test of time. The characters don't stand the test of time. It's, if you've watched an older 70s, 80s movie with, stuck-up women, beefy country boys, then you pretty much know what you're getting into there, the characterization. But yeah, overall it stands up. So this is one that surprised us as being good, because as you mentioned, we were putting off watching it, and after this one we sped up. We realized, hey, these aren't so terrible. They've kind of become a meme in the film community, I believe. But yeah.
Yeah, like overall it was enjoyable. Like we've said, comedy was good. I felt like it didn't lean too much into horror. I mean, it's a silly premise to begin with, like a killer leprechaun.
Yeah.
So, it was as horror and scary as it could be, for the premise, I think. So, number one, good, worth watching.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely good. And another thing, if you're thinking of not watching these based on the fact they're horror comedies, I actually loathe horror comedy, and I still greatly enjoyed these, so I definitely say they're worth the watch.
Yes, he was very, at times I wanted to, break, let's not watch one tonight. I'm just like, no, come on. So we're watching the movie? Yes, we're watching the movie. So, yeah. On to number 2, which is entitled Leprechaun II. So for this one, it's not really related to the first movie, except for the fact, there's a leprechaun. He wants his gold. Well, actually, in this case, it's not really all just about the gold. This time, he wants a wife. And before the actual movie starts, it shows, the leprechaun, he picks a wife who happens to be this dude's daughter that he catches and enslaves. And he's like, I'm gonna make this bitch my wife. Too bad you can't do nothing. The dude ends up tricking him so he doesn't marry the girl. And he's like, I put a curse on ye and I'm gonna fucking stalk your family until a hot one comes in another 1,000 years. And so that's what he does. This movie, pretty much, he goes after the descendant chick, and her boyfriend has to rescue her. And that's pretty much how the movie goes.
This is the first one that we noticed. There's no real continuity regarding the leprechaun's abilities. Sometimes they add some, take some away, and the weaknesses as well. So in the first one...
just Clover's.
Yeah, it's just Clover's. And it's also established that the longer he's been without his gold, the weaker he is, the less of it he has. But in this one, he has a new weakness, wrought iron. So that's one thing you should go into these films, keeping in mind there's no large amount of continuity. Pretty much the only continuity you can count on, aside from one of the films, is that it's the same old leprechaun.
Well, with the exception of one of the films.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Oh. Whoops. I'm listening and paying attention. Again, unlikable characters, really, except for this one delightful old man who's a drunk, and he meets a bad fate because he gets greedy.
Yes, more unlikable characters. There was no big name draw in this one, which we have in the notes here, but this really holds up through the rest of them, really. No real big name actors and actresses other than the first, at least not that I noticed.
Well, I don't know if Laz Alonso would count as a big character at the time. Oh, and Ice-T was in one of the movies as well.
Oh, yes, Ice-T.
But that's not a common theme for them to have like a big name draw for the movies, which is a little surprising considering how big the franchise had gotten. But again, I don't know at this time if it was like a huge phenomenon, considering at this time, they just had two. But
well, it's really common for horror and horror comedies to go with lesser known actors, probably because these aren't really huge budget productions.
True.
You only see the big ones like the Insidious franchise, Sinister, stuff like that. Get the huge names.
Yeah, that's true. The bigger budget ones usually do get the big names. But for in my looking, sometimes they will get someone who's kind of like up and coming to be in the movie to kind of have a draw for it. Like especially in like the 80s, 90s they were doing that. But this kind of like breaks away from that. But that's neither here nor there. It was the pacing on this one was kind of meh in my opinion. It was still enjoyable and it didn't feel like it was dragging, but kind of in between the leprechaun showing up and the kills was kind of meh. And the most of the characters were still not very likable. Like the woman lead, she got mad that old boy had to work. And it wasn't even his fault that he had to work. And she got pissed off at him for like most of the movie until he came to rescue her. And she was like, oh, okay, well, whatever.
Yeah, like how dare you work for a living.
I mean, I know it sucks when, someone breaks a date with you. But, her reaction to it just seemed kind of unreasonable. But other than that, I thought it was pretty good. This one was worth the watch, I think.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's good, but yeah, it's definitely worth watching if you have nothing else to do. Or as like a party movie where everyone, like rips on it.
And I just want to be clear, when we say good, we don't mean like, masterpiece.
Yeah. The first one was like good. But when we say the second one was good, we mean it's worth watching if you enjoy the really good ones of the series. So like if you really like number one, then yeah, I would say 2 is definitely worth watching. So, anything else to say about number 2?
Nope, I think that about sums it up for number 2. On to number 3, Leprechaun 3.
Oh boy, Leprechaun 3. So, in this one, the leprechaun heads to Vegas. At the beginning of the film, he's brought into a pawn shop with a necklace around his neck, or well, really a chain or emblem or whatever.
A medallion.
A medallion, yeah. Thank you. That turns him to stone. He is sold off by this very nervous man quickly for much less than it was worth, him and his pot of gold. And he then gets out of there. The pawn shop owner, of course, even though he was told not to, immediately takes the medallion off of the leprechaun statue, at which time it comes to life, and the events of the film get kicked off. You know, of course, some of the gold is lost. So yeah, it goes from there.
Some newer elements were introduced here, like if you have the coin, you can make a wish. You get one wish off of it. As far as like the main plot, college student saves this magician chick from the side of the road, drops her off at the casino, and he ends up gambling and
he loses his college fund. After losing the college fund, he runs over to the pawn shop to sell his watch, where he finds the gold coin that was lost, as well as the body of the pawn shop owner. And then he goes back, wishes that, you know, he could be back on a winning streak, and he begins winning all his money back. The leprechaun breaks into his hotel room and bites him, and some of the leprechaun's blood gets into the bite, leading him to become infected with, what do you want to call it, leprechaunitis? He starts turning into a leprechaun, which is ridiculous.
But that's not even the most, like, ridiculous part, because, like, all of the biggies in the casino get a hold of the coin, and they make, like...
Terrible wishes.
Yeah.
Terrible wishes.
Like, oh, I wish the magician chick would fuck me. That goes badly. I wish I was young and beautiful. That also goes badly. And, I wish I was a really famous magician also goes pretty fucking badly. So, everything goes badly with these wishes. Yeah, that's pretty much the movie. They do defeat the leprechaun. This time, though, it's introduced that if you destroy his gold, he will be destroyed. So that's how they defeat him this time around. And yeah, that's pretty much the movie. Didn't really care for this one that much. I affectionately like to think of it as Leprechaun's Vegas Vacation, because that's pretty much what he does. He's partying up. He's getting some ridiculous kills. The kills were pretty good, I will say. They were creative enough.
Yeah, almost all the kills are tied to the wishes the people make with the coin as it changes hands. But, yeah, it's just really, really bad. The humor was there. You know, the characters that you were supposed to root for were likable enough. It was the first female lead that was likable, that you could really sympathize with. It was definitely more comedy than horror, which we mentioned earlier is a good thing for these films. But this one is bad and not worth watching simply because there's too much downtime between action and seeing the leprechaun.
And the whole, like, side thing of being infected and becoming a leprechaun... I felt like it was a little much for me. Like, yeah, these movies are ridiculous, but I feel like that took it, like, a step beyond. And it made it just, like, super, super ridiculous. Like, you really, really had to suspend your disbelief there. Yeah, this one you can skip. Not really worth watching.
Yep, definitely skip this one. Just too much downtime.
And then we come to Leprechaun 4, Leprechaun in Space. Woo fucking boy. The plot for this is just pretty nonsensical. Somehow the leprechaun ends up in space. He ends up, I guess, trying to broker a deal with a princess from another planet. And somehow this military contract people get involved. and they take the princess away. They think they killed the leprechaun, but they did not. He ends up on the ship, and lots of horrible shenanigans ensue. That's pretty much all I can say about it. It was not good. It's not good.
Yeah, this one was just terrible. The special effects, which they use a lot of in this one, are just terrible.
There are times where, at one point, he gets enlarged, and the enlarged image of the leprechaun is pixelated.
Yeah.
I kid you not. It's fucking pixelated. If I can find an image, I will put it here for you, and it's just laughable.
Yeah, the gold was barely a part of the plot. This is part of that trend of horror movies and series going to space. However, unlike the other ones like it, this one makes no attempt to explain why they're in space or how the leprechaun got there. The sound design is pretty bad. The characters are terrible.
Not a likable character at all in there. Like, no one makes sense. Nothing makes sense. It's just a mess. Avoid this one at all costs.
Yeah, definitely skip it. It is the second to most worst one in the bunch. Although one plus I will give it is at one point in the film, this mad German scientist on the ship kind of explains the draw to the series in a kind of fourth wall break, where he's laughing at the leprechaun like, oh, you're the monster we've been hunting after on the ship? And yeah, I thought it was kind of clever.
But other than that, there's no reason to watch it. Avoid it. Please, for the love of God, don't watch Leprechaun in space. You will suffer.
Yes. We literally wrote, how did they think this was good, in our notes for this one. So, yeah, just terrible.
Now we are on to number 5, and I believe this one was...
Leprechaun in the Hood.
Oh my god. So, I personally was a little anxious about this one, because I thought it would be full of really bad stereotypes, and as a black person right now, I wasn't in the mood for it. But, even though there were some stereotypes present, I actually found this one to be pretty enjoyable. For me, probably one of the most enjoyable in the franchise.
Yeah, this one's definitely really great. So for the plot,
it starts off in the 70s there, with Ice-T and his big ass afro, his big ass fake afro, and he finds the leprechaun in the leprechaun's lair. I believe he is stone at this point, and his homeboy takes the medallion off. And, you know, the leprechaun gets mad. Him and Ice-T have a fight. Ice-T bests him. And then we get into the main plot of the movie, where there's these 3 dudes. They're trying to... Well, they do have a rap group, and they're trying to go to this competition that's in Vegas. And Ice-T kind of disses them after they're chilling and they're trying to cut a record deal. But with Ice-T, because he's got this big record label. So they get into an argument, they break into Ice-T's studio apartment thing, and they steal some of the gold and a magic flute there. The magic flute has this power where if you give a little tooty toot toot on the flute, I didn't mean to rhyme that time, but you can basically get people to do whatever you want, like you, and they use the flute throughout to kind of push them forward while the leprechaun is chasing them.
Yeah, so, yeah, this one was really good because you can tell they had a lot of fun with it.
This is the first one where the leprechaun actually wins, which surprised me because I was like, oh, he actually got a W. Good for him.
Yeah, the ending is pretty abrupt. But all the characters are likable. Even, you know, Ice-T, the, I guess, villain other than the leprechaun, the other antagonist. The stereotypes are pretty light in this one. I did write in the notes to talk about the stereotypes, but actually, in hindsight, you know, the next one, Lep in the Hood 2, really leans into the stereotypes more
than
this one does. This one's just some great fun. And this is a good time to bring up this leprechaun in almost all the films loves to party. You know, there's a section of him drinking in Leprechaun II, where you get a cameo from
Tony Kai.
Yes. A cameo from him and a lot of other little people actors cheering him on in a drinking competition with the old man. In this one, he smokes hella weed. It's just great. He gets a stable of bitches. Like, he's hypnotizing all the women in the area.
Bringing them up to do naughty things.
Yeah, it's just hilarious. And then there's his rap at the end. Left in the hood, up to no good.
He does that all the time now.
Yeah, it's just hilarious. This marks the first time a good amount of the main characters die.
Yeah, in most of the other ones, like, the mains don't really die. They're just kind of injured. But in this one, like, most of the main cast dies. And that was a bit of a change of pace. A little bit shocked by that. It broke the formula. And there was some continuity in regards to, like, his weakness. Like, the medallion was still there. Him turning to stone was still there. So, bit of continuity. The effects were still good. Aside from, well, even the light stereotyping wasn't too bad, in my opinion. It, like I said, it was a concern for me going in, but as it went on, it really didn't become, like, an issue. Like, they didn't overstep the line. It was just kind of light and fun. Like I said, this one's probably one of my favorites in the franchise. Any other thoughts or opinions?
Not really, but yeah, this is definitely one of the best ones to watch. Not my personal favorite, but yeah, it's definitely up there.
So, on to number 6, Leprechaun Back 2, the number 2, The Hood. And it's not a continuation of the 5th one like we thought it would be. New cast there. Basically, in this one, for the plot, before our main story starts, kind of like a youth pastor there encounters the leprechaun. He buries his gold somewhere so he can't get it, and he banishes the leprechaun into the depths of hell before dying from his wounds with the leprechaun. And then the main story starts. You've got these 3, they're supposed to be high schoolers, or just finishing high school, I guess. They look significantly older, of course. You know how that goes. So these 3 friends kind of struggling. The ex-boyfriend comes back in the picture, and our lead girl falls down a hole, finds the leprechaun's gold, and they decide to split it 4 ways. Yeah, they go kind of buck wild spending it, and the leprechaun wants his gold back, so we're back to him wanting his money back. Bitches better have his money. This one was not that good.
Yeah, I really didn't like this one. There have been light characters joking about in the previous ones about the leprechaun's height, but it's all just leprechaun related, not really haha he's short. And there was a lot of height related humor which I didn't like in this one. There was more stereotypes of weed being bad than in 5, which didn't do any of that. The characters weren't likable here. But I would say the worst part for me was the fact that none of the kills were really creative. He just tore them apart like your average monster, really. There were no rhymes, which has been a staple of the series up to this point. And actually the practical effects were actually very poor as well.
And the downtime between action scenes and kills was just not interesting. There was a pretty good amount, I would say, of downtime between kind of in the 2nd, the 3rd, even somewhat in the 5th. But it was enjoyable downtime, at least, between the kills. Like, it was working towards something.
Yeah.
And this, it just kind of wasn't. It just wasn't good. And I felt like this one tried to be more of a serious kind of slasher horror than it did lean into the comedy. It didn't lean into the comedy as much as it did. Like, yeah, there were like a couple funny moments. Like, they were throwing a party and the leprechaun's there trying to find his gold, and he ends up getting high and just going through the fridge, like eating shit, tasting shit, not liking it, just throwing it everywhere, and he gets stuck in the fridge. Like, that's funny.
Yeah, there is some good humor here. But the leprechaun just was not interesting in this one, other than the humor aspects he injects in occasionally in this one. Because his powers weren't on display here, other than him being resilient and unstoppable without his weaknesses, There's nothing really interesting about it. It was more like a short Michael Myers in a leprechaun outfit, really.
Yeah, it wasn't good. You can skip this one completely. Wouldn't hurt you.
Yeah, definitely skippable.
Now, on to number 7. Leprechaun Origins. This was not in conjunction with the other ones. It's a soft reboot. Well, I wouldn't say soft reboot. They described it as a soft reboot. I would say as a really hard reset.
Yeah, it was definitely a complete reset on it. And this one is just terrible. It is the worst of the 8.
This is a WWE Studios here, so that should say something.
Yes.
Hornswoggle, the wrestler, was the Leprechaun, but it didn't even have to be a somewhat big name because it didn't even matter. Truly did not matter.
Yeah, they really plugged it. I believe there was a promo WWE did for it. And of course, putting his name in the credits very prominently in the opening credits. And then he's under so much, not terrible makeup, but so much, monster, makeup that you can't tell it's him. And it's not like he talks during the film either, so.
This was definitely more of a monster movie. Basically, what happens in this one, a group of students go off to Ireland to visit this small little town. While they're drinking in a pub, some Irish dude is like, hey, you should check out this thing. We'll let you stay in our little cabin overnight, and then you can go, make your little hike to the thing. So they're like, yeah, that sounds cool. So the Irish dude locks them in, and it turns out they were to serve as an offering for the leprechaun, and it's just them trying to survive and get out of the town, and it was terrible the whole time.
Yeah, terrible. It's just your generic monster movie, but terrible. The camera work was really awful. The gore effects were worse than some of the much earlier installments. There's no connection to the rest of the series.
The characters were terrible, not a likable character up in that joint.
Yeah, there was no greed aspect from the main characters. There was no real sense that they got themselves into it with the rest of them, or most of them. I guess the premise could have had promise, maybe, but there was zero humor. Whoever decided to take the leprechaun and it needs to be a mute animal-like beast. Just awful idea. Awful.
I will say the makeup was good for, a monster movie, but I felt like it kind of completely trashed the whole spirit of the franchise, it's supposed to be this funny little schlocky thing, and this is just schlock.
Yeah, they it's like they had shot a completely different movie and then just added some scenes setting it in Ireland, loosely tying it to leprechauns, and they said, yep, that's good, folks. It's almost like a completely different movie.
I would say pretty much unwatchable. It is unwatchable.
Yeah.
Don't watch it. This is my absolute least favorite, and 4 was terrible. Mind-numbingly bad. This one, nothing even a little bit redeemable about it. Just skip it. Don't watch it. Pretend it doesn't exist.
It makes number 4 look like a masterpiece.
It does, and that's really saying something.
Yeah.
Avoid this like the plague. It doesn't exist. We will never speak of Leprechaun Origins again.
And then finally there is number 8, Leprechaun Returns, which is another reboot which takes place immediately after, well, not immediately after.
Like 25 years
Yeah,
after the first.
Yeah, 25 years after the events of the first one. And this one we thought was going to be bad, but this is actually my favorite of the series.
Yeah, I would say this one was pretty good. I do prefer Leprechaun in the Hood, but this one would probably be my second favorite. It's really good. I really do like this one. So for this one, like we said, it's set 25 years after the original. Jennifer Aniston's daughter goes back to the original house there to join this kind of sorority thing. They're supposed to be going off the grid doing this project or whatever.
Yeah, I believe it was like on community farming, eco living, something like that.
So she goes out there to be with this sorority. She does meet Ozzy, and Ozzy's like, "Oh, so you're Jennifer Aniston's daughter. Nice to meet you. Yeah, we were kind of friends."
Yeah, and worth noting that they bring in the original actor for Ozzy as well. He's not in it too long, unfortunately, but yeah, it was pretty great to see him again.
So they get to the house, and the leprechaun is reawoken. He unfortunately kills Ozzy pretty quickly, and he's like, I need me fucking gold. Where's me gold? So he goes back to the house to try to get the gold, and that's pretty much where the movie goes.
Yeah, this one is really great. They bring back the weaknesses to Clover, of course, as well as wrought iron. The kills are very creative, just really good ones in this one. The best thing about it is they really lean into the comedy aspect very hard, and it's better for it.
Yeah, it's really great. Like, some of the characters are taking like selfies with the leprechaun.
Yeah.
Yeah, the humor's really there. It really leans into it. It was actually quite funny.
Yeah, the redesign for the Leprechaun was really good. Really good makeup. They didn't step away too far from the original design. You can tell they really paid respects to the original in their sequel here, and it's just so great. One thing I would say about the Leprechaun's actor, the accent is not good, but you can tell he was having a lot of fun with the role, and once you've been watching it for maybe 20 minutes, it's no longer a problem. You get over it quick.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like sometimes the accent was like pretty bad, but like you said, you could tell he was having fun with it, and he was like actually trying to convey like the leprechaun energy, and I felt like he did a good job with that.
Yeah, the cast is very likable, at least the people you're supposed to like, which is something that's always been a weak point of the series. But yeah, the cast is very likable, fun. The effects are done well. Very well, actually.
Yeah, and this is a sci-fi original too. So like when I saw that, I was like, oof, because you know how some sci-fi originals can be.
Yeah, we both groaned, but then yeah, it turns out very funny, very nice.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. Like I said, it would probably be my second favorite out of it, and it's apparently your favorite, right?
Yes.
So, just to sum up about this series, it was not as painful as I thought it would be. We actually had a pretty good time watching all of them.
Yeah, I certainly didn't expect out of the 8 movies, half of them to be really worth the watch, honestly.
So, as far as watchables, that would be Leprechaun, Leprechaun II, and then
Leprechaun 3, if you're really enjoying the series.
And then Leprechaun in the Hood. And then you can watch the last one, Leprechaun Returns. As far as unwatchable, terrible, don't fucking do it on your life. Don't watch 4. Nope.
Yeah, do not watch 4 or 7.
Yeah, but then this is the last time we will ever, and I mean ever, speak of Leprechaun Origins. That's it. That's all you're hearing about it from me. I will never mention that movie again in my life. It does not exist.
Yeah, as for my watchable versus unwatchable, I would say 1, 2, 3 if you're really enjoying the series. 4 definite skip. 5 although I would say you could also watch 6. Although we said it was bad.
It's watchable.
Yeah, I would definitely put it in the watchable category as well because you didn't. I don't know if you just forgot.
Yeah, I completely forgot about it.
Origins does not exist. Never heard of that one. But if it does exist out there and you see it, don't watch it. It's a scam. And yeah, definitely 8, my favorite of the series.
It was actually a good time if you kind of want some horror comedy. If you're having a little watch party, you're getting a little buzzed. It'd be a good thing to watch. We were sober for most of it. He was drunk for a few.
Yeah, I think 1 or 2.
but it was still an enjoyable time. So if you kind of want something kind of schlocky, kind of funny, a bit ridiculous, then the Leprechaun series is definitely worth checking out for the most part. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you have a happy Halloween. And now I will go back to not posting for like a month. Just kidding, kind of. Maybe. We'll see. Anyway, happy Halloween. Bye. Bye, bye, bye.
Bye. And remember, never touch a leprechaun's gold.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed that and were doubling over with laughter. And remember, never borrow money from a leprechaun because they're always a little short. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Bye, bye, bye.